For the last 50,000 years, the human economy has been limited by a single, frustrating bottleneck: the human body. Think about it. Every empire built, every skyscraper raised, and every line of code written had to pass through the slow, clumsy movement of our fingers or the vibration of our vocal cords. We have ideas at the speed of light, but we execute them at the speed of biology. Even today, as you watch this, you are interacting with the most advanced machines in history through a primitive method: tapping glass or clicking plastic. In the world of high-frequency trading and artificial general intelligence, the human being has become the slowest part of the system. We are the lag. But what happens when that lag disappears? What happens to the global economy when the barrier between thinking and doing is completely erased? When your brain is no longer a locked box, but a high-speed node on the global network. This isn't just about helping the paralyzed walk again. That is only the first step. This is about the birth of the post-human economy, a world where productivity is measured in neural bandwidth and where the term human capital takes on a literal digital meaning. Today, we go beyond the hype and the headlines. We are looking at Neuralink, not as a medical device, but as the most disruptive economic engine ever conceived. When does the brain connect directly to the grid? And more importantly, are you ready for what happens when it does? Welcome to Silicon ASI. To understand the economic shift, we first have to understand the bridge. Elon Musk often describes Neuralink as a Fitbit in your skull with tiny wires. But that's a massive understatement. In reality, it is a feat of engineering that makes the moon landing look like a high school science project. The current version of the device, known as the N1, is a coin-sized disc that replaces a small piece of your skull. It's invisible once installed. But inside that disc are 1,024 electrodes distributed across 64 ultra-thin threads. To give you some perspective, these threads are about 5 microns wide, roughly 1/20th the thickness of a human hair. They are so thin and flexible that a human surgeon couldn't possibly insert them without causing catastrophic brain bleeding. This is where the R1 robot comes in. Imagine a machine that combines the precision of a semiconductor manufacturing tool with the delicacy of a neurosurgeon. The R1 weaves these threads into the motor cortex, avoiding every single blood vessel with micron-level accuracy. But why 1,024 electrodes? Because the brain is noisy. Your neurons are constantly firing, creating a chaotic electrical storm. To turn a thought into a click, Neuralink doesn't just listen to the noise, it decodes the intent. When Noland Arbaugh, Neuralink's first human patient, wants to move a cursor on a screen, he isn't thinking about a cursor. He's imagining the movement of his hand. The chip picks up those specific electrical signatures, translates them into binary code, and beams them via Bluetooth to a computer. The latency? Nearly zero. The potential? Infinite. But here is where the business side of things gets interesting. Right now, the N1 is a read device. It listens to the brain. But the roadmap for the post-human economy requires the device to write to the brain. Neuralink's upcoming project, Blindsight, aims to do exactly that, stimulating the visual cortex to create images for those who have lost their sight. When you can both read and write to the human neocortex, you aren't just fixing a disability. You are upgrading the human operating system. You are opening the door to the high-bandwidth interface that Musk insists is our only hope of staying relevant in the age of AI.
Let's talk about Noland Arbaugh. In 2016, a diving accident left Noland paralyzed from the shoulders down. For 8 years, his interaction with the digital economy was limited to mouth sticks and voice commands. Slow, exhausting, limited. In January 2024, Noland became patient zero. The results weren't just a medical success, they were an economic proof of concept. Within weeks, Noland was playing Civilization VI for hours on end. He was navigating interfaces, sending emails, and interacting with the world faster than he ever could with a physical controller. He called it the Force. But look closer at what's happening here. Nolan's brain is now directly integrated into the digital workspace. In a world where work is increasingly just the manipulation of information, Nolan is no longer disabled in the eyes of the market. In fact, in certain high-speed data environments, a linked individual might soon be more productive than a natural human. Imagine a software engineer who doesn't need to type code, but can simply visualize the logic and have it appear on the screen at the speed of thought. Imagine a stock trader who feels the market fluctuations through haptic neural feedback before the charts even update. This is the transition from the information age to the neural age. In the information age, wealth was generated by those who could best access data. In the neural age, wealth will be generated by those who can best integrate with it. The post-human economy begins when we realize that the brain chip isn't just a prosthetic for the sick, it is an overclock for the healthy. If you're an entrepreneur or an investor, you need to pay attention to a concept called the UI bottleneck. Every major economic boom in the last 40 years has been tied to a breakthrough in user interface. The PC gave us the mouse. The web gave us the browser. The smartphone gave us the touch screen. Each time the interface became frictionless, the economy exploded. Neuralink represents the zero-friction interface. 1. The end of language barriers. In a post-human economy, the write capability of BC is, brain-computer interfaces, could allow for near-instantaneous translation. Not through an earpiece, but through direct conceptual understanding. If I can transmit the concept of an idea directly to your brain, we no longer need the clumsy, imprecise medium of words. This collapses the cost of global collaboration to zero. 2. The democratization of skill. We've all seen The Matrix, where Neo says, "I know Kung Fu," after a 5-second upload. While we are decades away from uploading complex muscle memory, we are very close to augmented learning. If a BCI can stimulate the areas of the brain responsible for focus and memory retention, the time it takes to master a new professional skill could drop from years to months. 3. The 24/7 cognitive workforce. This is the darker side of the economics. If your brain is connected to the network, does your workday ever truly end? When your thoughts can be monitored for productivity and focus levels, the management of human capital reaches a level of granularity that would make George Orwell blush. We are looking at a future where companies don't just buy your time, they buy your neural cycles. Let's look at the balance sheet of the future. Historically, wealth was built on land, then on factories, then on data. But in the post-human economy, the primary asset is cognitive bandwidth. If you can process information 10% faster than your competitor, you win. If you can process it 1,000% faster because your brain is directly interfaced with a cloud-based AI cluster, you don't just win, you redefine the game. But here is the billion-dollar question. Who pays for the upgrade? Imagine a world where intelligence is no longer a biological lottery, but a tiered subscription model. The free tier, basic Neuralink, access to standard communication and health monitoring. The pro tier, low-latency connection to GPT-7, real-time data overlays, and professional-grade skill modules. The enterprise tier, full neural integration with corporate swarms, allowing for collective hive-mind problem-solving. We are looking at the potential for a biological class divide. For the first time in human history, the gap between the rich and the poor won't just be about the cars they drive or the houses they live in. It will be about the speed of their thoughts and the depth of their memory. If you think the digital divide was bad, wait until we face the neural divide. When an enhanced worker can outperform a natural worker by a factor of 100, the labor market as we know it collapses. The natural human becomes economically irrelevant, not because they aren't smart, but because their hardware can't handle the data load of the 2030s.
Now we have to talk about the price of admission. And I'm not talking about the $10,500 Elon Musk estimates the surgery might eventually cost. I'm talking about privacy. Right now, your thoughts are the only truly private space you own. You can lie with your words, you can hide your emotions, and you can keep your wildest ideas to yourself. Neuralink changes that. To function, the device must translate your neural spikes into data. That data doesn't just stay in your head, it has to be processed. Even with on-device encryption, the metadata of your mind becomes a commodity. Think about the advertising industry today. They track your clicks, your location, and your heart rate. Now imagine an algorithm that knows the exact moment you feel a spark of desire, a twinge of hunger, or a flicker of doubt, before you even consciously realize it yourself. In the post-human economy, attention isn't just something you give to a screen. It's a neurological resource that can be harvested. And then there's the security problem. If you can read from a brain, you can eventually write to it. We aren't just talking about hackers stealing your bank passwords. We are talking about neurojacking. The ability to subtly influence a person's mood, their decision-making process, or their political leanings by stimulating specific neural pathways. When your brain is a node on the network, it is subject to the same vulnerabilities as any other node. It can be dosed, it can be spoofed, and it can, theoretically, be shut down. The question for the Silicon ASI generation is, are we willing to trade the sovereignty of our minds for the power of gods? So, when does the post-human era actually begin? If you're waiting for a cyberpunk 2077 world to appear overnight, you're looking at it wrong. It's happening in phases. Phase 1, 2024 to 2026, the clinical phase. This is where we are now. Neuralink, along with competitors like Synchron and BlackRock Neurotech, are proving safety. The focus is purely medical. But this phase is critical because it builds the regulatory framework for what's coming next. Phase 2, 2026 to 2030, the prosumer expansion. As the surgery becomes less invasive, moving from a full craniotomy to a robotic stitch procedure, we will see the first elective users. High-stakes professionals, elite gamers, and tech pioneers will begin to adopt BCIs for a competitive edge. Phase 3, 2030 and beyond, the Great Integration. This is Musk's endgame. A world where the BCI is as common as the smartphone. A world where thinking is the primary way we interact with artificial superintelligence. By 2030, we expect the first neural app store to emerge. Applications that don't run on your phone, but directly on your visual and motor cortex. The story of Neuralink isn't a story about a chip. It's a story about the next step in human evolution. For millions of years, evolution was driven by biology, by the slow, random mutation of DNA. Then, it was driven by culture, by the passing of knowledge through language. Now, it is being driven by silicon. We are at the threshold of the most significant transition in the history of life on Earth. We are moving from Homo sapiens, the wise man, to Homo technologicus, the connected man. The post-human economy will be faster, more efficient, and more brilliant than anything we can imagine. It will solve diseases, it will bridge the gap between human and machine, and it might just be the only way we survive the rise of AGI. But as we plug in, we must remember, the link is a two-way street. We are not just connecting our brains to the internet, we are connecting the internet to our brains. And in that exchange, the definition of what it means to be human will change forever. The future isn't coming. It's being coded, it's being woven. and soon it will be thought. I'm your name, and this is Silicon ASI. If you want to stay ahead of the curve in the age of intelligence, hit subscribe. The network is waiting.